Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and in this video, we're going to be building a platform bed frame. And because I know everyone loves options, I'll show you how to build it either with or without storage drawers. I've got the printable building plans for twin, full, queen, and king sizes in both storage and non-storage options, linked in the video description below, but I'll walk you through the step-by-step process to building each right here in this video. So if you're ready to dive in and get building, let's go. This video was sponsored by Birch. If you've seen many of my videos, you know that I love using plywood for most of my projects, but for this one, I opted to use 1x construction lumber for the majority of it. No real particular reason, except that I just happened to notice some really nice 1x12s at the store, and I thought it would be fun to switch it up here. But if you wanted to use 3/4 inch plywood for this, that would totally work. Now, whether you're building a bed frame with or without the storage drawers, the first step here is the same, cutting the head and the footboards. I cut these from 1x12 boards. From here, let's focus on building the bed frame without the storage because it's the easier of the two. Now that I have my head and footboards, I need to make the side rails. For this, I trimmed down another 1x12 board to about an inch longer than the length of my mattress. Then I ripped this about 9 inches wide on the table saw. The knurl strip that's left over will be used to support the bed's slats, but because I was using bed rail brackets to assemble, I needed to trim this piece a few inches shorter for them to fit. After sanding all of my pieces, I glued and screwed the knurl strip on the inside of my bed rail so that it was 3/4 inch down from the top edge. Then I laid out my pieces on the shop floor. The head and footboards will overhang the side rails about 2 inches, so to make this easy to assemble, I clamped a scrap piece of 2-inch wide scrap plywood to the headboard to hold my side rail against. I also placed a piece of scrap 3/4 inch thick board underneath the side rail, and I'll explain that more in just a minute. To make it super easy to assemble and disassemble the bed, I like to use these interlocking bed rail brackets. The part of the bracket with the slats goes into the head and the footboard, and then the part with the teeth goes into the side rail. I apologize that my arm was in the way here, but I just interlocked the pieces and drove the screws through the holes in the brackets. I repeated this on the other end at the footboard. So I wanted to mention this here. The way that these brackets work, these little teeth have to go into the slots and then they have to go down. Like they lock in to the bracket. So if for some reason your floor was uneven, where maybe it's touching in the middle, but the two ends are not sitting on the floor, that would mean that this bracket could not go into the slot and go down as far as it needs to lock into place. So basically I raised the side rail up off the ground to avoid any issues with uneven floor. That way it has no choice but to go into the bracket and lock into place. Now, normally you just repeat this to build and attach an identical side rail on the other side to complete the frame. But because I wanted to show you different options, I'm building the other side with drawers. So you'll have to just pretend for a moment. The last part is adding the slats to support the mattress. For this, you could use 1x boards or 3/4 inch plywood strips, and I actually used a combination of both because I didn't have enough of either one and I didn't want to run to town for more material. Now, I know mine looks odd because one side has drawers and one side doesn't, but maybe this will help. At the center, you have a few options. You could run a beam from the headboard to the footboard with a center support or two to support the slats, or you could just use some posts under each one. Either option would work, but I usually prefer to just add a 2x2 under each slat. I don't really have a grand reason as to why, except that I just really like having each slat in direct contact with the ground versus a center support. Once the bed is placed in its final spot, I space the slats out and screw them into the supports on each side rail. Then it's ready for our new mattress from Birch Living. The older I get, the more I realize how important a good night's sleep is, and a good mattress obviously plays a major role in that. We decided to go with a Birch Luxe mattress for several reasons, but one of my favorites is that it's delivered right to the door. No awkward shopping trips or dealing with pushy salespeople in a furniture store. You just order online in the comfort of your own home. The shipping was quick, and once it arrived, it was so easy to unbox and set up on my new bed frame. Of course, it is a bit heavy, so maybe a second pair of hands would be helpful. Because Birch understands that buying a mattress online can feel a bit unpredictable, they offer a 100-night sleep trial so that you can test it out to make sure you love it. Besides the whole convenience aspect, Birch is dedicated to quality. Their mattresses are made with responsibly sourced materials like organic cotton, organic wool, and 100% natural latex, and they back their product with a 27-year warranty. So I can feel good about the source and the durability of what I'm sleeping on. A bed frame is only as good as the mattress you put on it. So if you're thinking of making a switch, right now, Birch Living is running a huge President's Day sale through February 28th. And they're offering my subscribers an exclusive partner discount. Head to birchliving.com/Shara to get 27% off your mattress with the code BirchPartner27. I've also linked this below. Now let's rewind a bit, head back to the shop, and talk about how to make this bed frame with the storage drawers. So the head and footboard are still the same. Remember, I cut those from 1x12s. But instead of side rails, now I'm going to build a box frame to run between them. So first, I ripped a strip of 3/4 inch plywood and trimmed 4 pieces from it for the sides and dividers. Because the front edge of these pieces will be visible in the finished project, I edge banded them, but that's totally optional. Then I cut 3 pieces of 1x4 to about 1 inch longer than the length of my mattress. I laid out 2 1x4s and began attaching my plywood panels to them using wood screws from the bottom side. I attached the 2 ends first, then just evenly spaced the other 2 dividers. After these were together, I added another 1x4 along the top of the back side. Oh wait, that's upside down. Hang on. Next, I cut 3 pieces of 1x4 to run between the plywood panels at the top front corners. I simply attach these using pocket holes and screws to complete the frame. Now at this point, I was ready to install the slides. Okay, so I meant to use 18-inch slides with these. I don't have 18-inch slides. I don't know why I thought that I did. I have 16s and 20s, so I'm just gonna use 16s, and I may make my door boxes 18 inches deep. It just won't like fully open all the way, but I'll at least have the extra storage space. But anyway, these should have been 18-inch slides, but they're 16s, so just ignore that. I installed 3 pair of drawer slides into the openings in the frame. Then I began my favorite part of every project, building the drawers. I won't go into super detail on how I build drawer boxes here because I have a whole separate video on that,
But basically, I ripped some plywood strips to cut my drawer box pieces from and cut dados in them to install the 1/4-inch plywood bottoms. After trimming down the pieces to make 3 identical drawer boxes to go into my frame, I assembled them using pocket holes and screws. Then I installed them onto the slides. In this case, I found it easiest to just remove the part of the slide that mounts to the drawer boxes and screw this directly to this side of the box, flush to the front and bottom edge. Then I slid each drawer into the openings. Now I needed the drawer fronts, but I also needed a final piece to go across the top of this frame. So I cut a piece of 1x12 to the length of my frame. I needed the drawer fronts to be about 8 1/4 inches tall, so I ripped this board to 8 1/4 inch wide and used the offcut as my top piece. Then I trimmed continuous grain drawer fronts from the board. I labeled my drawer fronts and set them aside for the moment while I attached the top piece. I wanted this piece to overhang the drawer fronts, so it needed to overhang the front edge about 3/4 of an inch. So I positioned and clamped it in place, then secured using screws from the underside. Once this was installed, all that was left was attaching the drawer fronts.
So I've got these 1/8 inch shims that came with the Craig drawer front installation jig, but any like 1/8 inch thick shim or even 1/4 inch if you wanted to use 1/4 inch, like it doesn't really matter, just as long as the gaps are consistent. I'm gonna use an 1/8 inch and I want it to be an 1/8 inch between this top piece right here and the drawer fronts. That'll leave a bigger gap down here at the bottom, but design-wise, I'm intentionally wanting a bigger gap down here so that it kind of matches this negative space here will kind of match on the other side where I've got the 3/4 inch gap over there. So anyway, that's on purpose. Then I'm gonna use a couple screws from the inside of the drawer box to secure.
So now you just repeat to make another frame for the other side of the bed, but as we've already discussed, I made one normal side rail and one storage side rail, so you'll just have to imagine. At this point, I stain the bed in Minwax water-based stain and pecan. Water-based stains are really pretty neat. They don't smell and they're easy to clean up. The only downside really is that they dry super fast, so you have to apply it in small sections and then wipe the excess off really quick. Once dry, I applied a clear coat, then brought everything inside. Like I mentioned earlier, the basic side rail locks together with the brackets, but for the drawer frame, to secure it to the head and footboards, I measured that it was 2 inches inset from the edge of the head and footboard, then secured with a few wood screws. Then I could measure cut and install the slats across them. I mentioned earlier for the frame without storage that there needed to be a center support, but for the storage bed, if you did a drawer frame on each side, no center support is needed because the slats will be supported on the backs of each frame. Once the slats were secured in place, the bed frame is ready to go. Oh, and I totally forgot to add the handles to the tops of the drawers. I wanted something minimal, so I just used these little finger pulls on each drawer front. And with that, this simple modern bed frame is finished and I'm ready for a nap. I hope you enjoyed seeing this project come together, and I hope it helped to see 2 different options of building it. Sometimes storage is great, but sometimes you just need to keep it simple. If you're ready for more projects to come, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned because I've got plenty more builds to share soon. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building!